they're in the minority. They shouldn't be in a position to make these kinds of demands, and they are making demands at the expense of, right now, good sense. Now, let's dive into this shutdown brinksmanship here for a second, because what's happened, Clay, so we're in day 15. You've got military members and you've got people who are working for the government in things we actually need and want the government to do, who at this point have missed a paycheck, right? Most people are paid biweekly. So now, if you are paycheck to paycheck, there's no money. So now you're running up credit card bills. Now the family stress is increasing. And it's very important that the American people understand Republicans were ready to do the same funding that Chuck Schumer and the Democrats voted for, what was it, last March, I think? They're willing to just keep funding the government. Democrats are holding hostages here. Democrats are the ones that won't go forward and do this in a reasonable, rational way. And the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, is saying this is just going to start lighting our money as a country on fire if we don't get this thing settled. This is cut 2. Secretary Bessent, play it.
We call on the moderate Democrats in the Senate to be heroes. Be heroes. Break away from the hive of radicalism and do something for the American people, because we are starting to cut into muscle here. We believe that the shutdown may start costing the U.S. economy up to $15 billion a day. And this is a decision the Democrats are making. And one of the reasons that they are not being held to task is because the mainstream media is not coming at them the way they would have if the Republicans were willing to keep the government closed.
That's absolutely true. Now, they don't have, Clay, I think we could agree, the same power that they once did to completely shape and dominate the narrative on this. But we do know that if this was a different circumstance, the Democrats would be pounding the damage of the shutdown all day. I'm sorry, the media would be pounding the shutdown damage all day long and making sure that it was front and center in every newscast and every news cycle. But it's on the Republicans. I'm sorry, on the Democrats.
Yes, 100%. And I understand there's starting to be some impact. I have the sneaking suspicion they're doing another one of these stupid No Kings rallies this weekend, I believe, Buck, for all of the people who are complete losers and can't find a better way to spend a spectacular fall weekend than walking around screaming about how you don't support Kings. I think they're waiting till after the No Kings rally happens because they don't want to try to strip its momentum to actually reach an agreement. That's my conspiracy theory here, because if you acquiesce and bend the knee on the Friday before the No Kings rally, then everybody's like, we do have Kings. Oh my. And all of this is about Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries trying to maintain their limited House and Senate authority and stave off everybody out there. And so I think that's really what this is based on more than anything else. And I suspect that they will bend the knee sometime next week. That's my guess. I also think Trump stole so much of the thunder with the Middle East peace agreement. I just don't even hear that many people asking about this. Does anybody come up to you? People come up and ask all sorts of questions when I'm out and about. Nobody's asking about the shutdown. And I understand people out there who have government jobs, and some of you are listening to us, you're going to get paid. And so there isn't any suggestion that eventually you're not going to get paid. Now, maybe you don't have savings, and I get that's frustrating. You have to pull out the credit cards and things like that. But this is all Democrat driven. And I think it's much connected to this No Kings rally on the 18th, where they're trying to avoid creating a stir by bending the knee before the rally. I really think there's a big part of it that's just predicated on this.
That's definitely, I think the analysis you put forward on next week sounds very reasonable, very likely to me. And as we're seeing where this goes, remember, Republicans have voted 9 times to reopen the government. So the Republicans have said, let's go. They're not the ones that are the sand in the machinery or in the gears here. It is the Democrats who have sabotaged the reopen. And it is because now they say they want another $1.5 trillion in spending. They're in the minority. They shouldn't be in a position to make these kinds of demands. and they are making demands at the expense of, right now, good sense and a lot of people who anxiety is rising. Look, Clay, I get it. People are going to get paid, but having been a government employee who lived paycheck to paycheck for many years, you don't want to run up credit card bills, right? And
Yes.
it's just an anxiety. If you're, you got a family, maybe you got a couple of kids, there's that anxiety of, I did my part, I'm showing up. And remember, this is now, we're talking not about people who, there's a lot of what I call low show jobs in the federal government, especially in the Beltway, where you show up, you don't show up, it doesn't really matter. No, we're talking about military service members now. We're talking about people that we have, as a society, as a country, asked to do these jobs because they need to be done. And I know we're going to end up paying them, but the Schumer shutdown is just complete theatrics. It's unnecessary. And to your point about the No Kings rally, it's just so they can say, we stand and fight. We stand and fight Trump. And that Chuck Schumer can say that so that AOC doesn't go from Congresswoman AOC to Senator AOC.
That's right. This is not based on what's best for the country. It's based on what's best for the Democrat Party. And I don't think it's lost that essentially you have two guys from New York City that are the top Democrats in elected office right now. One of them, obviously, Hakeem Jeffries, who is, I think, a middling at best leader for the Democrat Party. Whatever you think of Nancy Pelosi, she was able to corral, herd the cats, dominate them, and strategically she had some sort of vision. Chuck Schumer, I think, also very middling level leader in the Senate, and they recognize that they are being challenged. Look, there's talk out there that one of Mamdani's top political aides is going to challenge Hakeem Jeffries in the midterm and may try to win that primary and knock him out of being in Congress at all, which is a sign of how little respect they have for his leadership to challenge in a serious way the Democrat minority leader. And then, as you just mentioned, Chuck Schumer lives in eternal fear of AOC deciding she wants to be a senator and wiping him out. So I think that's really what this entire government shutdown is about. Schumer upset the crazy left wing when he agreed to this back in March, and he's decided he can't do it again.
What does Schumer do if he wakes up and he's not a senator anymore? Lawn bowling, mahjong, New York Times crossword puzzle. Like, what is, Schumer at this stage of the game, Clay, his whole thing is he's just got to be in the game.
This is why I argue in an ideal world, there would not be professional politicians, because there would be people who do things other than politics. And so if they're not politicians anymore, their life doesn't feel as if it's without purpose. I think one reason why so many of these politicians in their 70s and 80s are refusing to step away is they don't have anything else. And I think Chuck Schumer is a good example of that. Now, I think the one thing Chuck Schumer has working in his favor is I don't know that AOC wants to run for statewide office in New York. I think she wants to run for president of the United States. So Chuck Schumer may benefit because AOC's ambitions are bigger than the office that he currently holds. That would be my forecast. And I think you and I both have said we don't think it's crazy to contemplate AOC as the VP nominee with a Governor Gavin Newsom as the nominee for the White House.
Is AOC a more dynamic personality and online avatar by leaps and bounds than Kamala, who was just a VP under Biden? Not even a question, right? So
Correct.
Of course she could be the VP.
And she's got the Bernie Sanders stamp of approval, as Bernie is now, frankly, too old to ever run for president again. We'll take some of your calls. The talkbacks, little early preview. Don't even look at them, Buck. They are hysterical, as you may well remember from yesterday when I made the greatest argument in the history of the show about the worst way to die, and a lot of you had opinions on that. Ceasefire agreement in the Middle East this week, along with the release of the remaining 20 living hostages, brought great relief for Israeli citizens. They waited more than 2 years for this moment. In that same spirit, it's worth highlighting what one of our longtime partners is doing, the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. That's the IFCJ. For 4 decades, the fellowship has brought Christians and Jews together to solve big problems facing the Jewish people in places all over the world, Israel, but also the former Soviet Union. One of the problems is feeding the hungry and those without means. That's why 6 days a week, IFCJ teams in Israel are on the ground hand-delivering boxes of food to feed and comfort the poor, particularly the elderly, some of which are the last remaining Holocaust survivors. I went to this food bank and helped to create food to be distributed that many of you have helped to pay for. Put your faith into action by taking part in the IFCJ's mission. To find out how, visit ifcj.org. That's ifcj.org.